Over 20 years ago, Volvo released one of its most popular vehicles to date, the XC90. Now, when this vehicle first came out, it had two options. One was a 2.5 liter turbo called a 2.5 T, and the other was a 2.9 liter twin turbo inline 6 they called the T6. And it only came in an all-wheel drive option and was fully loaded with accessories. This T6 had a 2.9 liter inline 6 twin turbo motor that was bolted to a GM 4-speed front-wheel drive transmission called a 4T65E, and it's very common in a lot of GM market vehicles. And no, I'm not sure why Volvo decided to buy this design from GM and put it in this vehicle, because GM has had several problems with this transmission. Now, the older version of these cars are still popular today, and I have one here. This model is a 2004 T6, and it has the GM electronic front-wheel drive transmission with a problem in it. This vehicle, when driving, will slip on the 2-3 shift, causing it to go into failsafe, basically leaving it stuck in third gear. Today, we're going to be removing the transmission and starting a series of videos. We're going to be taking this Volvo from a paperweight to a normal driving all-wheel drive machine. Before I go any further, I want you to comment and let me know why you're watching this video today. Do you have a Volvo transmission problem? Are you looking for solutions? If so, subscribe to my channel and email me at justcallme81@gmail.com, and I'll help you out as best as I can. Now, this transmission removal can be very difficult because it is all-wheel drive and it is a front-wheel drive, and not to mention it's a Volvo, and that's probably why you're watching this video today. So we're going to go through a step-by-step process of how to get this transmission out properly. Okay, so our transmission is somewhere down there. We need to get to the top of it to access all the bolts and everything to get it out. So we're going to start by removing all this stuff up top and putting the air box here, which looks like this. And now we're going to unplug the transmission here. All right, next we're going to get the starter out, and it's right there. See if we can zoom in on it. There's a lot of wires in the way, but it's only two, what it looks like is 14mm bolts. Yep. Alright, now we get the torque converter exposed, and I believe, yeah, we can get to the bolts. This is how we're going to be turning the crank right here. We had to get the tire exposed and get this wheel well exposed. So we're going to lower it back down so we can get to our torque converter bolts up top. Alright, you can see our torque converter bolts. They're right down there. And that's where we're going to be getting to them. Alright, so I took this hose off so we could get to it. And this is actually a torque head bolt. Alright, finally. That's the torque converter bolt, and that is a Torx head 47. Torx head 47 there that we use to get it out. So we got this engine chained up, and we're gonna hope that it holds it up in there. I'm just kidding. This should hold it up in there. We got one side chained here to our mount bracket right there. Got a bolt just going through it, holding on the chain right there. And then they have another little engine hanger right here. You can just throw a bolt through there. And I just got a cross beam engine hanger. This is old, but I just got one right here, and I just looped the chain over it, and I put 2 screwdrivers in there so we won't lose much slack going either way. Should be okay. We're also going to be putting a support beam down below to hold it up, an engine stand to hold it up while we're getting the transmission out. The really tough part is going to be getting that subframe out. Now we're going to go down below, and we're going to get everything down below to get the subframe ready to come out of this thing, where we can get the transmission nice and exposed and get it. What the? I've never seen that in a f***ing axle, bro. All right, now we got to get the mounts loose. Now there's one mount back here, and it sits right there. And the bottom bolt to attach to the frame, it's just right there. So you just get that bolt out. You have another mount up here on the front. That bolt hole right there, just get that out. We got the motor mount over here, which we're gonna take that bolt out and that bolt out to get it off the frame. Now the power steering rack is held in by 4 bolts. One of those bolts is this one right here. And I believe it's just a stud that comes down through. Then there's another one right there. All right, and then we got one through this little hole right there, and then one through this little hole right there. So we're gonna take all 4 of those down real quick. All right, looks like we got the rack is attached to that one mount. So now we're gonna tie it up to the struts, make sure it don't fall down when we take the frame down. Last thing we gotta get is this torsion mount right here. Holy. Whoa, that came down quick. We might need a pry bar on this. Pry these in. Alright? Yeah, I got it.
been in a shooter before. I know.
Yeah, it's a remake.
Watch that deal.
So I had to do this R&R multiple times, and on the second time around, I found a little bit easier way to do it. You technically don't have to pull the transfer case out, but it can be done either way. There's a couple different ways to do this. There's always multiple ways to do something, but I think I have found the easiest way to R&R this transmission without killing yourself. You see, I have the transfer case still in the car, and it's being held up by this stand right here and that 14mm bolt that holds it on the top of that bracket. I left this motor or transmission / motor mount in the car as well, and that's because it's so bulky and I can easily get the transmission up and around all of this stuff, and it was much easier to take out without having to remove this mount or get to that 14mm bolt, and getting that transfer case out is a real pain in the butt. So to do that, you have to get to this 14mm bolt right here, and there's also a bracket. This L bracket sits right in between this bolt hole and that bolt hole, and then bolts to the transmission itself. And then there's a bolt that goes right here that bolts to the transmission. So you get all those loose, you can break it loose and get it back far enough. And you might actually have to, once you get this mount loose, take that bolt loose a little bit to get it back far enough and get it down. And we also have an engine hanger up top, so we can hang the engine and bring it down a little lower to get the transmission past the firewall right here. And one thing I do before I put it back in is put an axle in the driver's side, just because it can be very difficult to get that locking ring around this axle or inside of that axle. So we put the axle in, and you should be able to maneuver it and around and get it up in there, and then stab your axle hub right there, and then you're good to go. So this R&R is very tough, but I believe I found the easiest way to complete it by doing what I did in this video. Now, if you have any questions about what I've done in this video, or have any questions about this transmission, feel free to email me at justcallmeeddie1@gmail.com, and I'll help you out as much as I can. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. What is wrong with this old axle? When we removed this axle, it was leaking fluid, and I have never seen that before, as I stated in the video. And what we found is on the other side of the axle, it actually has a shield that's supposed to be in there. And whoever installed this transmission last obviously put that axle in there a little too hard or a little too far and popped that seal or cover out of there. And it actually was leaking fluid around the splines into the axle. So the axle was completely full of fluid. I'd call it a hydraulic axle, but it's not supposed to be like that, obviously. It's supposed to just be grease in there. So of course we got it replaced and got it fixed up. In the next video, we will be taking this transmission completely apart, figuring out what's going on with it, and I'm going to show you what's going on with it, but I'm not going to fully rebuild it in the next video. We're just going to go ahead and put it back in. If you want to see a rebuild video, I have a 4T65 update video in my channel. Go check it out right now. I'll also have more videos coming out on this 4T65 on my other channel called Transmissions America, John and Eddie. Go check that out as well. If you find yourself starving for more content, go over to my Instagram and Facebook and be sure to follow me there. And you can also subscribe to this channel because it is one of the main channels I post on. Thank you for watching, and as always, whatever you do, make sure you stay dirty, make sure you work hard, and most importantly, make sure you play hard. You can just call me Eddie.